So in the state of Arizona, we are a title and escrow state, where a lot of our buyers are coming from maybe the East Coast or Midwest, where they're attorney states, where they hire attorneys to handle their closings. So I wanted to talk about closing costs here in the state of Arizona. Buyers and sellers have closing costs
Yes, they do.
that they incur. Buyers have a little bit different because they'll have lender fees in addition to title and escrow fees. And then sellers have the cost of sale in addition to title and escrow fees. It's amazing how many clients that we come in contact with that don't know about these fees. So I would love to find out who pays what, maybe in a buyer scenario and in a seller scenario, and what they mean. What are some of these fees?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the state of Arizona, typically the title and escrow fees are split 50-50 between the buyer and seller. However, with the exception of the title insurance policies, the seller will pay for the owner's title insurance policy on behalf of the buyer, and then the buyer will pay the lender's title insurance policy on behalf of the lender. So typically in a buyer scenario where there's a loan involved, they will not only have an escrow fee, they will also have a lender's title insurance policy fee. In addition to that, they'll have endorsement fees, which are part of the policy fees for the lender. It's additional coverage to the lender's title insurance policy. And that one is one that really kind of trips some people up because they're not used to seeing that and they don't know what that is. That is additional coverage for the lender's title insurance policy. That's what those endorsement charges are for. One of the other fees that most people aren't aware of is what's called the CPL fee, or the closing protection letter fee. That is a requirement of the lender for us to issue that. It's actually an indemnity policy to cover the lender should there be any ill malice performed by the title company. So it's an indemnity for them of additional coverage to protect their interest. In addition to that, you'll have a recording fee, which again is typically split 50-50 between the buyer and the seller, as well as the escrow fee split 50-50 between buyer and seller.
Because they're hiring you.
Yes.
They're hiring you to handle all of these insurance policies and getting clean title searches, things of that nature. So it's a hiring fee.
It is. So like the escrow fee is for the processing of the escrow documentation itself and facilitating the documents between all parties. As a neutral third party, we take in all the documents between the agents, buyers, sellers, and lenders. And we do our part to make sure that title is clear. What that means on our side is making sure that all liens are paid in full, HOA demands are ordered and paid in full, taxes are paid current, and of course if there's any mortgages, we have to make sure that that's paid as well. For the policies, the owner's policy is a coverage policy for the buyer that ensures clear and clean title to the buyer when we close. What that means is in the event that something were to get recorded within the lien period or gap period, they would be covered after closing for that against any liens that would potentially pop up after the fact, or what's called that gap period, because there is a gap period in the title insurance between recording and the title plant and everybody coming up to date. So that's what that title insurance policy protects them from.
Okay, and so liens like tax liens, mechanics liens, HOA liens,
child support liens, IRS liens, those things will be protected with that policy. Okay. So what that means essentially is in the event that that would come up, the client would contact us and file a claim through our company, and then it would go to our claims adjusters, and then they would finish processing the claim at that point, meaning they would handle the payments or anything of that nature.
And the buyer would not have to be concerned
Exactly.
Gives that peace of mind. Insurance.
Yes. Okay. And then for the lender, it's the same policy coverage on the lender side that the buyer pays for. So they're purchasing a policy to protect the lender and the lender's interest in the property as the lien holder. So it's the same exact coverage. So they can too file a claim if, let's say, there was a deed of trust in first position that was not disclosed, and we went and recorded that deed of trust, assuming that they would be in first lien position, that policy would cover that claim for them no longer being in first lien position.
Okay. So there's a lot of pieces to what you're handling for the buyers and for the sellers to protect the parties.
Yes.
So that there's
absolutely.
no issues.
Absolutely, absolutely.
During and after.
Yes, yes.
The circumstance,
Yeah.
the closing.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah. And so typically in the state of Arizona, you on your settlement statements, it will be split and you'll see the cost for the seller on one side and then you'll see the cost for the buyer on one side. All of the escrow and title charges are in one section, but you'll see the split off of who gets charged for what. But that is in addition to, obviously on the buyer side, their lender's charges. And then for the seller, their closing costs will include that of the title and escrow fees on top of commissions or payoffs, taxes, anything of that nature that would also have to be paid.
Okay. And if there's any additional fee, like we talked about recording fees, that's probably the happiest.
Yes,
of
the happy
one. Because it then records into either the new buyer's name or, in the sense of the seller that just recently closed through Fidelity, that it was, he was done.
Yeah.
He could do cartwheels. He was finally done with that property.
Yes.
So that is a great one. There's also, I've seen like notary fees. What is that all about?
So typically the notary fee is a charge in the event that we have to send a notary out of state. It's not typical that notary fee is charged for in-state signings. It's typical only in the sense if somebody is out of state. And that's because most oftentimes those out-of-state notaries send the charge to us for facilitating the signing and overnighting those documents back to us so that we can facilitate the funding of the transaction and the recordation of the documents. So that mobile signing fee covers the notary's expense in getting the documents back to us so that we can finish the transaction.
Right. And with Arizona having many people that are either
Yes.
moving in or heading back to be with family,
Yes.
that's an important fee to recognize because
Absolutely.
we do a lot of out-of-state
Yes,
transactions.
absolutely. And with the exception too, I know Arizona gets a lot of Canadians too. With that, we actually don't typically extend a notary fee on those transactions because those transactions have to go through barristers and attorneys up in Canada.
True.
So we don't have any way of facilitating that. So there would never be a charge for the notary in that situation because the seller at that point or the buyer would be having to pay that expense up front to whomever they meet with to sign the documents if they're in Canada.
So it'd still be a cost that they would incur.
Yeah,
It's just not
something
what we
they
would call
see.
closing costs
Right.
on the settlement
Right.
sheet.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that. Anything that our buyers or sellers would also need to know on top of any other recording items or fees?
I would just say be mindful too when you are looking at your settlement statements that if there's a charge that you don't recognize, don't hesitate to reach out to us and ask us about it. We're here to explain it to you. One of the fees that does definitely pop up more than once is the endorsement charges because the lenders will require typically more than one endorsement. So you'll see sometimes a couple charges for that, and it is for different coverages that the lender requires. So I would say that is the one fee that will show multiple times, but it's because it specifically states out what endorsement it's for.
Okay. And it's nice to have this education. I know I attend my signings with my buyers and sellers in case they do have questions, and it's great to have you in on the signings as well because they always have questions.
Yes,
when they're
they
looking
do,
at
and we're
that
here to
settlement statement.
help. We're here to help.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again. Appreciate you sharing all the information and what buyers and sellers can expect from closing costs.
Absolutely.